we go. Okay, so tonight's is about project procurement, and if we look at what we're doing, it's going to spread right across planning, monitoring, control, and implementation. There's quite a few sub-processes to this one. There's 6 of them. 2 of them on planning, 2 of them on executing, and 1 on monitoring and control, or 1 on closing. So there's when we look at procurement, we're going to look at sub-processes that are right across the whole board of project life cycle. And if we have a look at what we need to plan and purchase, or plan, purchase, and acquire the process, obviously, the enterprise environmental factors, you can remember what those are going to play a very big input in this. The second thing that's going to play a big input is obviously your work breakdown structure and your data dictionary. That's going to help us because we need to know what kind of resources we have to purchase or what kind of materials we have to purchase. The project charter, that is always good because that actually gives us the definition of what we need to put in place. We have the scope statement, so we know where we're going with that. The project management plan, because by now we should have developed most of it. And then obviously the organizational process assets, and that'll be the policies and processes for actually procuring. So many places have very strict rules about procuring, and that's really the organizational processes and assets. If we now look at what the output would be, so if we're going to plan the purchase and acquisition process, what comes out of that is the procurement management plan, the contract statement of work, make or buy decisions, and finally requested changes. So there might be some changes in what we're doing here. So let's look at some of these tools and techniques. All right. The make or buy analysis is going to have a lot to do with the policies and the environmental factors of the organization. If I took an IT project, for example, because I know that well, we would have an architecture, an IT architecture, or a technology information framework, or an architecture, and that would actually give us the principles that we're going to use to make the make or buy analysis. Right? So I'm not sure how it would actually work in the construction industry, but it's some of the things that I could imagine whether you buy a pre-cost things or whether you make something on site. I presume it would be some of the make or buy analysis that you would have to do. Obviously there's expert judgment.
Yeah, well, just one example with that was the in our office arrangement with buying partitions. It was going to cost $15,000 to buy partitions for the office, but we could make them so much cheaper, you know. So that was one thing that we decided to do. For an example,
it's often got to do with pricing. It's often got to do with pricing. And the other thing it would be is also the quality. And the other thing it would be is also the quality. Yeah, in your case it was the pricing. Yeah, in your case it was the pricing. But I've seen people make decisions on saying, hey, we can make this at a far better quality than what we can buy it in for the same price. Then we have the expert judgment. The judgments that you're going to make from your experience that you have, looking at it, and then there are contract types. Let's just quickly look at each of the contract types. The first one is a fixed price. Now, if you can, that's a great one to go to, because what you're doing is you're mitigating a risk, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. By containing.
That's right. You're containing the price to that project. What you're doing is you're allowing someone to tender for a price or quote for a price. And you're saying, well, if it's a fixed price, if something goes wrong, needs more time with that, then it's not your risk, it's then the vendor's risk. Right. Then there are some others that I've actually used. I've used cost plus something. That tender was for peripherals for computers. What we said was, open your book, show us what you are. Show us your thing, and then we'll make a decision on that. I only know government departments that do that. I don't know of a private enterprise that would be so cheeky. But we have done that.
Yeah, so as far as actually showing you the cost of the supplier, is it for the contract, or whose cost is it that's being shown there?
Well, that's the cost plus is often. Well, I'll tell you where we actually use this. The European Union actually funded the project, and we only had one supplier. That was prepared to do this. So we went round a tender again, and we said what we did was that we put out the tender for a second time. And we said what we would do is that we would look at your cost price plus the percentage, and the vendor was happy with it.
Yeah, so you actually
we negotiated it. There was nobody else, so I mean we could see what it was costing. We could see what it was costing them. I've only done it once. It wasn't not a unique thing. It was because we gone out for tender twice, and we couldn't get more competitive prices. But yes, we have done that. Well, I've done it. The other one is cost reimbursable. That's a very difficult one. I haven't done that one, but that one what happens is that you do something, and for all the so they tender for their part of the work. In other words, if you've got a consultant, for example, you'd pay them for what was in the quote or the tender price, and then anything else overnights that you'd have to stay over, transport, all of that thing would be cost then reimbursable. So I can't remember ever doing something like that. But I have seen contracts that are like that as well. I have seen where it is. In fact, we do quite a lot of that here at Global Training, where we charge out for our rates, and then we ask for a reimbursement for any other extra costs that we have to go out. It's normally done with consultants. And then obviously there's the time and material. And that can be a very tricky one to manage. That's where the budget blowouts are really your risk to handle. So if you're the project manager, that's the difficult one. So those are the time and materials.
What do they involve then? How do they work?
Time and materials would be
yeah, that's right. Time and material.
Well, where I've used this one before, I put out a tender, and the terms of reference said, give me.
Put out a tender.
How we evaluated was this the criteria. We put out a small part of the. We asked them to develop a very small.
We put out a small part of
a pilot.
To develop a very small.
And what we asked them to quote on was a rate per hour. The reason why we did that is because we had no idea how big the project was, and we needed the supplier to actually help us work out how big this project was. So what we did was we evaluated the quality of their product, the end product for developing, and then the terms of reference said that what we would do then is work out the size of the project with them and being involved in it. So that's where we would have a time and
size
materials.
of the project with them and being involved in it. So that's where we would have
Material,
a time and
yeah.
materials.
That just means that every bit of material that they use on it is going to develop the project with vendor in mind, and with them negotiating that it would have to be time and material. So all the materials that they would use, time that it would take them would be worked into the project. So with a time and materials, what you're actually doing is you're bringing the vendor in right at the beginning of your project. Almost in the initiation stage.
The vendor in right
Does that
at
make
the
sense?
beginning of your project. Almost in the initiation stage.
It is, eh?
Yeah, no,
and it can be a little bit risky.
Right?
So
It is, eh?
you've got to know your vendors when you're doing that one. The fixed
And it
price
can be a
is
little bit
actually the
risky,
least
so
risk of all.
You've got to know your vendors when you're doing that one. The fixed price is actually the least risk of all.
Yeah, it's certainly the most
All right,
common
let's
they'd
look
use
at a
out
few
here
more.
that I can see anyway.
Often you would have a standard RFP
Alright,
form.
let's
In
look at a
fact,
few
I haven't
more.
worked for a place that doesn't got an RFP form.
Often,
Even
you
with
have
global
a
training, we've got a standard
RFP
form.
In fact, I haven't worked for a place that doesn't got an RFP form.
That would be a request for proposal,
With global training, we've got a standard form.
or a request
What's
for
that
tender.
mean,
That would
And
be a
normally they're in
request for
template
proposal,
format.
or a
So
request
all your
for tender.
standard tendering
And normally they're in template format.
legalese is all put into it.
So all your standard
The format for responding would be there.
legalese is all put into it.
And what you would fill in is, well, are the technical
format
parts
for
of it. In other words,
responding would be there.
what is it going to...
And what you would fill in is, well,
the costings,
the technical parts of
the
it.
evaluation,
What is it
the
going
audit,
to...
the audits, how you're going to audit, and all of those type of things. The things that you're going to do
the
based
evaluation,
around the actual
audit,
doing of the
the
job.
audits, how you're going to audit,
But
all of those
how the
things that
tendering
you're
was
gonna
going to be,
do
what the
around the actual
what the
doing
format
of
of the contract would be, and all that sort of thing.
how the tendering is going to be,
One of the things that I found quite amazing was
what the format of the contract would be, and all that sort of
one when I was working for the
things that
South
I found
African
quite
Qualifications
amazing
Authority, what they did was in the
one-
RFP they said
when I was
the
working for
proposal, the whole
Qualifications
proposal
Authority,
will
what they did
become
was,
part of the contract
in the RFP,
they're
they
going
said
to
proposal,
to
the
deliver.
whole proposal will
So
become
literally,
part of the
in
contract
the proposal, they would stamp every single page.
to deliver.
They would add
So
the
literally,
pieces of the
in
contract to the end of it,
proposal, they would stamp every single
or
page,
in the beginning of it, and then they would use the whole proposal as
contract to the end of it,
an
or
annexure to the
beginning of
contract.
it, and then they would use the whole proposal as
That's right.
an annexure
Yep.
to the contract.
Yeah, okay, rather than just being an
So
internal
that's an RFP.
process
An
document.
RFP it's what's something that you'd put out.
That's right.
You'd have your terms of reference in it.
So
You would
that's-
have
that's
how
an
the
RFP.
rules for engagement.
It's what's something that you'd put out, you'd have your terms
And those type of
reference
things. And then obviously you're going to have expert judgment
you'd have
when it
how
comes
the
down
rules
to
for
evaluating.
engagement,
And you're also going to have
and those type of things. And
what
then
I
obviously
learned.
you're gonna
I
have
learned
to
my
go-
big lesson with
when it comes
donors,
down to evaluating.
because they can be
You've also
very,
gonna
very sticky,
have,
especially the European Union
What I learned
was
I
very,
learned my
very
big
sticky
lesson
on
with,
how you're going
donors.
to evaluate that,
'Cause
and
they
your
can be
criteria
very,
better
very
be
sticky, especially
absolutely
with
spot on.
European Union. It was very,
In
very
fact, it's
sticky
quite
on
amazing.
how
You
you're
do
going
all
to
the technical
evaluate that,
evaluations
your
and
criteria better
the
be absolutely spot on.
quality evaluations and all of
In fact,
that
it's
you do
quite
first.
amazing. You do all the
You leave a sealed
technical
envelope
evaluations
until
and
the last thing, and the last thing you evaluate is the
quality
price.
evaluations and all of that you do first.
So that I
You
found
leave
very,
a
very
sealed
interesting. So
envelope
the RFP actually said
until
what
the
we're going to
last
do is
thing, and the
evaluate
last thing you evaluate
technically
is the price.
and from a competence
So
perspective
that
and
I
from
found very, very interesting. So the
and from all of that sort of thing. And then what we will do
technical
after that, we will open the sealed envelope where you've got your prices in it, and we'll look at your price.
and from all of
So,
that sort of thing. And then what we will
You
do
probably could
after that,
be
we will open the sealed envelope where you've got your prices in it.
out of the running before you even get to the price.
So
But doing
You
it that
probably
way
could
means
be,
that the price is the last thing that you're going to look at, and
out
it's
of the
very
running
easy
before
then
you
to
even get
actually
the
choose on price because you've thrown
But
out
doing it
everybody
that
else.
way means that the
You know that
price
these
is the
ones
last
can
thing
do the
that
job.
you look at,
Probably a lot
and it's
more
very
objective.
easy
you know the
to
quality
make
is
on price because
right. Now all
because
you've
you've
got left
thrown
to
out
do is
everybody else,
look at the
know that these ones
price.
can do the job.
So that was a very interesting way of
the
doing
quality
it.
is right. Now all you've got left to do is look at the,
And that's expert judgment.
so that was a very interesting way of doing it.
All right, let's get on to another one. Tools and techniques.
And that's expert judgment.
The bidder conference. Do you know what a bidder conference is?
All right, let's get on to another one. Tools and techniques. The bidder conference. You know what a bidder conference is?
All right.
No,
Well, what you would
to
do is
do with any of this
once
before,
you've done
so it's all
the
new to me,
RFP,
only what I've seen going on around me
that
in the
goes
office.
out and you advertise it.
All right. Well, what you would do is once you've done the
People that want
RFP,
to respond to that are going to come and collect the documents from you.
You advertise it.
And then what you do is you have a bidder conference. Now, most of the conferences that I had, because of the size of the projects, you would have a bidder conference. And what you do at the bidder conference is you give them a verbal understanding of what the environment is. So what environment are they going to be working in? What's
understanding of what
the rules of engagement, so that they actually understand it, so they can understand it. All the things that you've got in your tender, and then you allow them to ask questions, because if you've got a complicated RFP,
what the rules of engagement, so that
you probably haven't asked all the questions or been able to answer all the questions that the bidders would need. And if you're having a bidders conference, then what you've done is you've opened it up to every bidder that's there, and you've told them the same message. Otherwise, you can lead to some things being unfair, and what they could do is take you for saying, hey, you were unfair in the way that you were doing it. So bidder conferences is a way to get around that problem.
Some things being unfair, and what they could do is take you.
Another way to do it, I see you've got advertising. That's fairly simple. What you would do is you normally go to, and normally a company or a local authority or something would have already advertising companies that are already contracted to the organization. So you wouldn't probably deal with it.
Or a local authority or something.
The other one is to develop a seller's list.
Companies that already
now, I can remember doing that on a number of occasions, where you've got
the other one is to develop a seller's list. Now,
things like stationery and things that need to be purchased on a regular basis.
Where you've got.
So what you'll do is you'd go out for tender, and you would ask them for
things that need to be purchased on a regular basis.
Quotes for a year. So you're going to supply pens and pencils and printers and
you would
things
ask
that
them for
consumables. Then what you would do is you'd ask them for a price. You ask them to fix it for a year, and you would have more than one supplier.
Consumables.
You'd have 2 or 3 suppliers doing the same
type
of things, or overlapping, if you like.
For a year.
And then it leaves the user free to choose which supplier he wanted. So you limit the amount of suppliers. You've got a contract with a supplier to supply from.
Free to choose.
It makes a win. It's just another way of making a win-win situation for those things, those type of things that you need to buy from a panel. Does that make sense?
It makes a win. It's just another way of making a win-win situation for those things, those type of things that you need to buy from a panel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So
absolutely. I'll tell you where I've used it in the past.
Well, I guess it would depend on
is cabling.
what it was you're buying as to how many sellers you'd
We've had 2 or 3 suppliers on cabling. We are pretty strict on the way that we want the cabling. How it must be tied down, how it must be numbered, how it must be terminated, what type of terminations they must use. And then we specify all that in great detail, and we say, well, what we'll do is that we'll choose 3 suppliers, and every time that they come in and provide for us, they just have to tell us how long the job is going to take and how much material they're going to be.
We'll choose 3 suppliers.
And we know what the prices are. We know what their hourly rate is, and we know what their material cost is, because that's what they tendered for. So you've got a choice from that. So
we know what the prices are. We know what their hourly rate is.
Correct.
We know what their material cost
so
is. That's what they tendered.
A qualified seller's list
and you've got a choice from that.
is quite important
plus you've got a
for those type of
price
things,
to
because
go with
there
as
you've
well.
got a panel, you know that you can trust them, and
Brilliant.
you can choose from any one of those ones.
A qualified
That's
seller's list is
in large times. It's the
quite
CFO that has a lot of say
those type of
in
things.
drawing up
There
these
you've
type
got
of
a
things,
panel,
and
you know that you can
where the
trust
list,
them,
how
and
the
you
list
can
actually
choose
extends.
That in large times, that's
Auditors quite
the
like
CFO
going
has
that
a
way,
lot of
because then
say
they know
in
that you've
drawing up these type
done
of things.
your due
Where
diligence
the list, how the list
on your
actually
providers.
extends.
So they see it as
Auditors quite like
mitigating
going that way because
the
they know
risk
that
of
you've
going
done,
out
you've done your due diligence
for
on
small
providers.
tenders and small quotes all the time, because that actually
So
can be
they
quite risky.
see it
People
as,
can start putting prices up because of the way that
mitigating,
they can
the
watch
risk
how the quotes are
of
going out. When you're doing it once for a year,
for small
and they
tenders
know
and
that they're
small
going to get
quotes all the time. So that actually
a
can be
minimum
quite
quantity,
risky.
for example.
People start putting
It's a
prices
good way
up
to do it.
because of the way that they can
Right,
watch
so that's
how the quotes are going out.
developing a
Only doing it once
qualified
per
sellers
year
list.
and they know that they're going to get a
Right, still in
minimum
tools and
quantity.
techniques. Weighting systems.
Right,
This
so
really
that's,
comes to the
developing a qualified sellers list.
how you would how you do a selection.
Still in tools and techniques.
All right,
Weighting
so
systems.
weighting system
This really
actually
comes
says,
to
well,
the,
I'm going to you're going to break down
how you would
three
how you
key
do a selection.
criteria areas, and then you break
Right,
those
so
down
the
again
weighting
into
system
indicators on each of those
says, well, I'm
criteria.
going to,
And then what you do is you say, well,
you're
this
going to break down
point
key
means more to
criteria
me than
areas,
another point.
and then you break those
So
down
what you
again
do is that you
indicators on
go
each of
through
those
then, you say this
criteria.
supplier is very good, so
And
you
then
give
what
him
you
a
do is
5.
you say, well,
This one is useless,
this
so you
point
give him a 1.
means
This
more
guy's
to
pretty
me
good, so you give
than
him a
another
3, and
point.
then it's weighted depending
So what you
on
do
it
is
is.
that
Let's say we give
go
a
through them,
weighting
you say,
of
this
3,
supplier is very good, so you
and on
give
this
him
point
a
it's a
5.
3, so then it's 5
This one is
times
useless, so you give him a 1.
3, which
That's
then
pretty
makes
good, so you give him
15,
a 3, and then it's weighted.
and the other supplier that wasn't so good would only get 5.
A weighted 3.
Does that make
At
sense
this
what I'm
point
saying?
it's a 3, so then it's 5 times
Okay, so that's a
3,
weighted
which,
system.
then makes 15.
Another way of
The
doing
other
it
supplier that
is
wasn't so good would only get 5.
get independent estimates.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. So that's a weighted system. Another way of doing it.
So what you would do there is that you would get somebody to do the estimate that was from outside, and then you would go out to tender with those estimates. And so you mitigate the risk of the vendor trying to cut corners to make price fit, or to overestimate.
And then you would go out to tender with those estimates. So you mitigate the risk of the vendor trying to cut corners to make price fit, or to overestimate.
A screening system.
Yeah, so you're taking the estimation off
the only time that I've used a screening
tenderer
system is with
giving
consultants.
them the information, yeah.
And basically it's like an interview.
Maybe inexperience in it.
And you will screen the you will screen the supplier up front by
the only time that I've used a screening system
having an interview with them.
And basically it's like an interview.
There's a rating system which is very similar to the seller weighting system.
You will screen the supplier.
You're going to need expert judgment again on this one
Having an interview
to select sellers. And then there's the proposal evaluation techniques. Now we've just talked. A lot of these are actually the proposal techniques: the weighting system, the independent estimates, screening, the contract negotiation, seller rating systems.
And then there's
are all proposal evaluation techniques.
A lot of these are actually the
So that makes sense?
The weighting
go
system,
on.
the independent estimates, screening, contract negotiation, seller rating.
Contract and negotiation
are all proposal evaluation techniques.
This is where a portion of the tender is actually left.
Yeah, okay. So what was the
especially when you want something up front. So if they're coming up front and going to help you develop a project, then you're going to negotiate the time and you're going to negotiate the cost.
This is where
so you've looked at the tenders out there and you're saying
Especially
this
when you
guy,
want something
these are the
up
guys
front.
that
So
could
if
do
they're
this.
coming up front and going to help you develop
They've got a reasonable cost, but we're going to have to because we don't know how big this project's going to be. We're going to have to negotiate with them through it. So you pre-select the supplier, and then you negotiate the end result.
Do this. They've got a reasonable cost, but we're going to have to negotiate because we don't know how big this project is.
I would
We're going to have
imagine
to negotiate with them through it.
that would
So
happen quite a lot in construction,
and then you
right?
negotiate the end result.
Yeah, okay.
I would imagine that would happen quite a lot in construction, right?
Yeah, well, from what I can see in there anyway, it's certainly there's a lot of non-conforming tenders that come in that ended up getting chosen, and so I imagine then there'd have to be a fair bit of negotiation.
I would
come
imagine
in then
that
to
would
sort
have to
out
do that.
as far as what they're going to do. I mean, they've chosen
I'd rather go out and tender if I didn't get something 100% right.
done,
But
so
anyway, but you're quite right.
negotiate
That's
then to sort
that's an area that you would have to then negotiate with the contract. Let's look at contract administration and some of the tools and techniques for that.
I'd rather go out and tender if I didn't get something.
You're going to
but anyway, but you're quite
look
right.
at a payment system.
That's an area that you would have to then
Right,
negotiate.
so when does the person get paid? On what basis does a person
Let's look at
get
contract
paid?
administration. And
Now, this all comes down to your contract administration
you're going to
and management.
look
Right?
at a
So this
payment
is really
system.
your management part of the contract.
Right,
So in your contract,
when
you
does
would
the
have
person
probably
get paid?
negotiated
On
a
what
payment
basis
system.
does a person get paid?
But
This all
your
comes
payment
down to
system
your-
still has to be implemented.
contract
So there are many ways to
administration
do that. Okay, one is to pay on
and
milestones.
management. Right, so this is really
Another
the
one is to
management
pay
part.
at the end of every activity.
So in your
Another one
contract,
is to
you would have
just give
probably negotiated
a
a payment
tranche,
system.
which might be a
But
prepaid
your
for something,
payment system still has to be implemented.
and then they work that one out, and when they've
One is to
completed
pay
that
on milestones.
and you're happy with it, then you
Another
would do
one
the
is to
next
pay
one.
at the end of every
Now we
activity.
have done that before. What we do
Another one
though
is to just give
is
a tranche, which might be
to mitigate the risk that
prepaid
you
for
have if you're
something,
going to prepay something.
and then they work
What
that
we
one
did was
out.
we
When
actually
they've
asked the
completed
supplier
that,
for a bank
and
guarantee
you're happy
check,
with it, then you would do the
which
next
we
one.
asked our bank to hold.
We have done that before. What we do though,
So if they didn't perform, so they've had it up
to
front,
mitigate the risk that you have if you're going to
they've got their money
prepay
up front, because they need to go and
what
buy
we did
things
was
and
we
manufacture
actually
things
asked
and
the
all of that sort of thing.
supplier for a bank
And
guarantee
then
check, which we asked our
if they
bank to hold.
defaulted on that,
So
then the bank would actually put
if
through
they
the
didn't
transaction of the
perform,
check.
so they've had it up front,
So that was mitigating the risk of
they put their money up front,
payments.
because they need to go and buy
Right?
things.
Then
and
the other one is
manufacture
records
things and all that sort
management.
of
Now
thing.
that's really quite
And
important
then,
to look out for. Those
if
are all
they
the transactions
defaulted
that
on
take
that,
place. What's going to happen is,
then the
let's
bank
look
will
at them.
actually put through
It's
the
the timesheets.
That was
It's the
mitigating the
material,
risk
the delivery notes from materials. It's
Right? And the other one is a record
all of that
management.
paperwork needs to be managed exceptionally well, because
Those are all the transactions that take place.
that's where the errors come in.
Let's look at them. It's a timesheet.
When delivery notes get
It's the material
go missing and
delivery notes for materials.
30 cubic meters of
all of
sand
that
comes
paperwork
there, and you can't
managed
justify why it's
exceptionally
there,
well,
and it's just been sitting there. Nobody's used it.
That's where the errors come in.
Too many pipes been ordered for some reason.
The delivery notes get
All of that type of
are
thing
missing
because of
and,
records management. So records management plays a very
30 cubic
important
meters
role
of sand comes
in
there,
contract
and you
administration.
can't justify why it's there, and it's just sitting there.
The other one is obviously the use of information technology,
Pipes been ordered for some reason.
and that's pretty common today. Everybody's using spreadsheets
All
and
of
things
that
to
type of
actually
thing
help with that
because
one.
of records management. So records management plays a
Now,
very
claims administration is similar to a payment system. What you're doing here with claims administration is that someone's done some job and they now want to claim and say, hey, we want our
claims administration.
we want our money. This is where sometimes you would do client generated client generated invoicing.
Job and they now want to,
so
they want to claim and say, hey, we want our
yeah.
money. This is where sometimes you would do
so you'd understand that. They'd put in a claim and you'd do the invoicing for them.
Generated invoicing.
Oh, yeah,
Client-generated
we do that with
invoices.
our gravel stockpiles that are on people's property.
Yeah, the other one is performance
We
reporting.
do up an invoice for them on their behalf and just pay them.
Actually, I saw a very good thing on that one the other day.
Yeah, so you'd understand that. They'd put in a claim and you'd do the invoicing for them.
The contractors actually had to just, all they had to do is every day, all he wanted, this project manager, all he wanted was, he wanted to know the distance that they dug and how many, or how much piping they dug in a day.
Actually,
Just the
I saw
distance.
a very good thing on that one the other day.
And because he had such a good history of how, and a database of how things are constructed, he knew exactly where they were and how far they should have been. That's right.
And because he had such a good history of how, and a database of how things are constructed, he knew exactly where they were and how far they should have been.
Oh, okay, based on their capabilities.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's what we don't have enough of in there at work, is the capabilities of the teams that we're managing, our own teams. We don't know their capabilities well enough as far as estimating and planning what the project.
Well, this chap was really good on that.
For time and
okay,
cost.
That's his business, all right. That was his business.
So
his business was contracting, and obviously he got a lot of subcontractors into doing the laying of the drainage. But he was so accurate. I saw his estimating and what they were doing per day. And it's almost exactly how he said it should have been. And just any little deviance, and he was able to pinpoint it. That was really quite amazing to me. So that's performance reporting. That's where you gather the detail of performance. And then you build up a fantastic database of what it should be. So the next time you'll estimate better. So that really comes down to detail. So if you've got teams, you really need to start keeping a record of that. And as you go on, you'll
database of what it should be. So the next time. So that really comes down to if you've got teams. Really need to
I can understand that.
A record of that.
But it does make it difficult to estimate.
Build all that up
and that's what a lessons learned database is all about, by the way.
Help us plan for the
well, and that's where you can actually get that. Lessons learned is actually one of the lessons that you're going to learn is how much people are going to be able to. Performance is quite important from that. You can actually see.
Yeah, I can understand.
And it actually helps with the estimating.
But it does make it difficult to estimate.
The bio-conducted performance review is another one.
Database is all about, by the way.
So,
you can actually get that lessons learned.
I'm not sure how that would work in construction.
How much people are going to be able to.
But I'm pretty sure it could be done. But we actually did that quite a lot with the development of software, because that's quite an important aspect.
So.
To do those performance reviews, and we did do the performance review. We actually sat down with him. We said, "Okay, you've developed so much. This is work. There's very few bugs in the thing. This is how it's done." And we sit down with him and we actually work with it. And we said, "Well, how can we improve on this?" And that's really good for improving on. Okay, let's say that you're the project manager of a very big one, and if you do this up front and you're really strict up front, and you really get this down, what you'll find is that the end part of the project will flow like a dream. So when you get over the halfway mark, you're going to find that if you've done those performance reviews well, you're going to find that when they start performing well, you'll actually see that.
What you'll find is that
the difference of doing that. So bio-conducted performance reviews are very important at the beginning of your project. Remember, at the beginning of your project is your highest risk.
Well, you're going to find that.
All right, and then there's inspections and audits. I'm sure you're familiar with those.
You'll actually see that the difference of doing it. So
I should imagine, yes.
Very important at the beginning of a project.
So yes, inspection and going out and inspecting what's been done and passing it and saying, okay, let's go on to the next one.
I'm sure you're familiar with those.
That's where your quality is going to come in.
Yeah, we've certainly had a little bit to do with it, but
and then obviously there's the change control system.
I should imagine.
Right.
Yes.
often when you get down to the detail and you want to do something, often it comes up, hey, I can't do it this way. We planned it this way and we have to go do something, we have to go around it. The contract needs to take into consideration how you're going to deal with that. So that especially when it's going to blow your budget out.
You want to do something, often it comes up, hey,
that always reminds me of
we planned it this way, and we have to go do something, we have to go around it.
It was still the Post and Telecommunications at the time. That shows my age. I'm glad to keep quiet on this one. Anyway, I can remember I was quite a young guy, just finished, just qualified, and I was busy, and I'd done some stuff outside, and they sent me inside to do planning, which I wasn't happy about. And this engineer said, well, come, let's go and have a look at some jobs that had been done. And the one was a contract to lay pipes and cables between two exchanges. The estimator and planner hadn't gone out and checked, and he had laid the pipeline right through the middle of a farmer's dam. Now, you know what the contractor said to that? He kept absolutely quiet when he tendered. But after he tendered, he says, now, how much is this going to cost you? He said, you can't go through that dam.
The pipeline right through the middle of the farmer's dam.
So to go around the dam,
you know what the contractor said to that?
Cost them a fortune, because you see, it wasn't a competition to get who was going to be the cheapest now to do it. Now it was the fact that you couldn't go and get another contractor. You had to go and use them, and he could ask whatever price he wanted.
So he said, you can't go through that dam.
Okay, so
to go around the dam.
But this is where your change control system is important.
See, it wasn't
right?
a competition.
Because you're going to get things that because you can only put down so many pilot holes. I mean, otherwise your cost of thing, you might as well dig it yourself.
Your change control system is important.
And when you get to hard rock, then hey,
you're going to get things that work.
They really want to take you for a ride. So what you got to do is say, well, if you hit this hard rock,
I can remember.
Then we need to negotiate what it is, what we're going to do. And often what we did is actually bring in a second contractor for that second part. So we'd say to them, if your price is over this one, if you're going to do it over this one, then we have the right to bring in somebody else to give us a quote to do that portion of it. So that's about contract negotiation and mitigating your risk.
Is actually bringing a second contractor for that.
Yeah, I'm saying it's one of the risks that you've got to bring up. You can't see what's underneath the ground. So if you hit that one, and this guy's going to charge you whatever you like, say no.
Yeah, so if you include that clause in
if you go over a certain much, then we have the right to go
if you
and find a
include
second
that clause in your change control system, then you should be fairly right. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, those things happen.
You can't
That's a risk. You see, we did our risk management last week. This would be a risk that
this guy's going to charge you whatever you like.
Now we're going to look at
system, and if you go over a certain
some procurement audits. And the risk management system. So procurement orders are really quite important when you want to check everything, all right? And you want to check the paperwork, you want to check that the change controls are done, and all of those things. Normally, you will find that it'll be internal auditors that want to do this. All right, and they want to check all the paperwork to make sure that there's things that have either negligently done or even for fraud. Sometimes your suppliers want to get around some of these sections. So one of the things that you need to do is procurement audits.
Normally, you will find that it's internal auditors that want to do this.
And then the second one is the records management system. As a project manager, you really need to put a system in place to manage the records. So
or even for
those are the two things in contract management.
Suppliers want to get round
Additional ones. Right.
So one of the things
We are done.
Audits.
However, let's just try and answer this one. All right. Which of the
The
following may
second
be
one is
used
the
as a
records
risk
management.
management
Project
mitigation
managers
tool?
really need to put a system in
A
place to
vendor
manage
proposal, a contract, a quotation, or
those are the two
project
things
requirements.
Right. We are done. However, let's just try and answer this one. Which of the following may be
Actually,
used
I
as a
would put
risk
it down as your
management
contract.
mitigation tool?
All right. Your risk.
A vendor proposal.
This is where you're going to tie the things
Contract,
down and where you're going to
quotation,
mitigate something.
or
Okay, so your
project
written
requirement.
mitigation means how are you going to deal with something
Oh, well,
that
there
goes
could be a
that
couple
goes
of
out
them, really.
out
I'd
of whack.
say probably the
And that's
quotation
really needs to come
and
into
the
your
project requirements.
So
But,
you're
yeah,
going
not
to,
sure.
up front, you're going to look at the risks and you say, how do I mitigate this
Actually,
risk?
I would put it down as your contract.
And you're going to
Yeah,
mitigate
okay,
it
just as far as being able to tie things
the
down.
terms of your contract.
This is where you're going to tie
And
the
like I
things
said,
down
what we
and
could
where
do
you're
is
going
write
to
in, for
mitigate
example,
something.
if
So
you
your
get
written mitigation,
if
how
you
are
hit
gonna
hard rock,
deal with something
this is how you're going to deal with the situation.
And that's really needs to come
You'll have first call on the pricing for it, for the change
you're going
control, for the
to,
change
up front,
control.
You're going to look at the risks and
But
say, how
if
do I
we
mitigate
deem it
this
that it's
risk?
gone over a certain
And you're going
amount,
to mitigate it.
then we're allowed to go and find somebody else to
The
do
terms of your
something like
contract.
that. And that's
Like
in your
what
contract.
we could do is write in, for example,
And there you've mitigated the risk
if you hit hard rock,
of
this is how you're
discovering
going to deal
hard
with the situation.
services. Where might
Yeah,
have
so
to
all
even
that
blow
can be
You'll
put in
have
the
first
with
contract.
dynamite or
pricing
something. I don't
for
know.
it, for the change control.
So
But if
So a
we
contract
deem
would
it
be the
it's
best
gone
one, yeah.
over a certain amount, then we're allowed to go and find something else to do something.
Yes.
And that's in your contract,
Yes.
and there you've mitigated the risk
Yep. That's it.
of discovering hard services.
Well, I got 10 minutes to spare.
With dynamite or something, I don't know.
Mm. So with that, then you'd be looking back at your lessons learnt database to include those things in your next contracts with people. Is that the idea? Yeah.
One of the better ones that I've seen was actually a plain and
I
simple
was just going to
spreadsheet.
say, I wouldn't mind going over how you'd set up a lessons learnt database.
Let me just get down some of the headings and some of the things that we actually looked on that one.
How you'd
just give
normally
me a second or two.
sort of info.
I'll just pull it out and then I can actually talk you through it.
One of the better ones that I've seen.
That's a good idea. Okay. While I get that one, you can have a look at your cool drink. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Let me just get down some of the headings and some of the things that we actually looked on that one. Just give me a second or two.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I'll just pull it out and then I can actually talk you through it.
Yep. Very good. I might go and get a cool drink.
That's a good idea. Okay. While I get that one, you can have a look at your cool drink. Okay.
Okay, Colin. I'm going to have to just read it out to you, I'm afraid. Hello? Okay. Sorry, I'm going to have to read it out for you now. But possibly I could find a way to getting something to you as well. And we're putting it actually up on the oh, we are going to get to that one, yeah. So I'll put it up on. I did cover it in the integration.
Yeah, Chris, thank you.
Part. But I didn't cover it.
Sorry, I'm going to have to read it out for you now.
No, that's all right.
Okay, so we'll have.
I could find a way to get it to you as well. We're putting it actually up on.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah,
we are going to get to that one. Yeah.
Unless we could.
So, I'll put that.
Are you going to cover this later? Are you?
I did cover it in the integration.
I need to. Well,
yeah, a little bit. You mentioned it.
It's a hard paper now.
Yeah, it didn't really show any examples. I didn't.
I probably didn't cover it well enough.
Yeah.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, I just wonder whether you might be able to email it to me. Would that be all right?
I can send it. I'll send it to you later. I'll scan it, send it to you.
All right. Well, I'll just type in my email address in the chat screen.
Along the
send
top,
it straight there, and I'll be able to see it while you're talking.
The first thing that you can put in there is an ID number. And now, what you want that for is so that you can reference it. So your first one.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Yeah, no, that's all right. That's all right. No, that's all right. We'll just read it out, then that'll be interesting. Just the sort of the columns and headings.
I can send it. I'll send it to you later. I'll scan it.
Then the second one
that
you need is the meeting or the
of your thing. The first
where was it brought up?
Is an ID number.
Right. So the indication would be there is what is the how did you discover this incident?
Yep, right. So what I normally do.
So the first one is
database design and that.
Call it an incident number if you like. And then the second one is where did it come up? Did it come up in a project meeting? Did it come up in an audit? Did it come up in an inspection? So how did it actually materialize? How did you find this problem out?
Where was it brought up?
Remember, this incident will always be some sort of
the indication
project. So that's the second thing that comes up.
What is the
now the reason for that is
how did you discover this?
Is what you'd want to do is say, well, when you're going through this and you're going to use it in the future, what you're going to do is you're going to look at everything that comes out of project meetings, for example, or everything that comes out of audits. What were the things that we learned out of audits or out of something? So your first field, if you like, along the top, so your first column. So your first column is the incident one. The second one is where did it come up? So you're going to ask, where did this incident arise?
That's the second thing that comes up.
Okay. Then the next one is that the actual incident. So it's a description of the incident.
Say, well, when you're going
what was it? What was the problem that we encountered?
Everything comes out of project meetings.
All right. So what? So the second one was what? So it's where what?
Out of audits.
So you're going to see all of these things are going to come out now. Okay, so what it was, and then the second, so you've got a description of what the incident.
Where did it come up? So you're going to ask where did
and then obviously the next one is how did you?
It's a description of the incident.
And this is the important column.
So what was it?
How did you rectify
what was the problem that we encountered?
What did you do to rectify?
So what? So the second one was what? So
where
what?
Yeah, okay, yep.
So you're going to see all of these things are going to come out.
And
yep.
Okay, so what it was,
then you would put in your change control.
So you've got a description of what.
Okay, what change control did you do? And what was actually changed to do it? So how did you do it? And then actually what was changed?
How did you?
And the change control ID number.
How did you rectify?
All right, so you normally would have a change control ID number because you'd number your change controls. And then, who authorized the change?
Then you would put in your change control.
If there was a change.
Okay, what change control did you do?
How's that?
And what was actually changed to do it? So how did you do it? And then actually what was changed?
Yep. Yeah, but that how and what are quite big fields, okay?
Alright, so you
make them fairly
have
wide.
change control ID number because you number your change controls.
Oh, okay.
And then, who authorized the change? There was a change.
Okay. Yep. So that's just 6 fields then for each incident. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you got incident ID.
That how and what are quite big fields, okay?
Oh,
That's
I
right.
might just put a little star
Make
just
it
there.
anyone.
Yeah.
That's right. And if you've got an incident number, then just put that one down as well.
Highlight them.
I mean a change control number. Sometimes you have an indicator of
Yeah,
what
so
they
got
show. Because
incident
what you want to do then is
ID
go back
and then
and be able to
where
see
it arose from,
what,
whether it was a
what
meeting
that
or
was.
inspection.
Sometimes
or
you can
audit or
actually link to
whatever,
those things. So.
A description of the incident, and then how it was rectified, and then the change control as far as what was changed and how it was.
Yep.
And
you'll be surprised how quickly that starts building up.
That's right.
Yeah, so
that's where you're going to see some of the
number. Just put that one down.
Say, hey, we did that last time.
Yeah.
And you're going to use this when you go into your next project.
Because what you want to do then is go back to see what it was. Sometimes you can actually link to this. So.
Yeah, so as far as the change control number, then that would link back into your contract or your other system, other change control system.
That's right.
And you'll be surprised how quickly that starts building up. That's where you're going to see some of the.
This is where people get a lot of experience out. They get it out in the field and they very seldom share it.
Yeah, because it's certainly something like that it's all in people's minds in there, but it's not documented. There's so many things that they learn with mistakes and that things that come up, but they just don't document it to change next time. So it'd be good to have a decent system like that in place.
Yep. It always reminds me of
this is where people get a lot of experience out.
A young salesman that was working for IBM.
Get it out in the field, and they very seldom share it.
And he put in a bad proposal.
The trouble that we're all having in there, I think.
It cost IBM
something
it
like
cost
this,
IBM millions.
Where we can all access.
I can't remember exactly how many millions it cost.
Because I mean, no one gets really frowned upon if something happens.
But
they're more so frowned upon for not.
Well, he then became. At one stage, he became the CEO of IBM. It was Lou Gershwin. He actually then the chap came and asked him and said to him, "Hey, did you fire this chap?" And he said, "No, I've just paid so many millions in school fees, and you want me to fire him?"
Cost IBM.
It was an interesting answer.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember exactly how many millions it cost. But he then became at one stage.
Yeah, well, you've learned the lesson. I mean, it's not much that can be done. Sure, you've
actually then
mistake, and there could have been a mistake in
hey, did you fire the chap?
In professional judgment.
I've just paid so many millions.
I can show you that
in school fees.
Mistake will not be made again.
That was an interesting answer.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right then, Graham.
That's right.
I've got your. This doesn't look like your normal. Is this the one that you've given us before? Or is this a different one? So can I use this one to